I feel closer to you than ever, my wife said. While the message timestamp on her phone showed she'd written I miss you to someone else just 4 minutes earlier. I didn't say anything. I just stared at the screen in my hand, then at her face, still soft, still sincere, still wearing the expression she used when she believed she was safe. The lie wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. It lived in the gap between what she said and what time itself refused to hide. Are you okay? She asked. I nodded. Slowly. Automatically. Yes, I said. That was the moment my marriage ended. Not when I confronted her, not when she confessed, but when I realized how easily truth could exist beside affection and still be erased. I'm 41. I work as a structural engineer in Portland. Precision is my profession. Load limits. Margins. Timestamps. Things either align or they don't. And suddenly my life didn't. My wife, Elena, and I had been together for 9 years. Married for 7. Long enough to stop narrating our love story out loud. Long enough to trust silence as stability. Lately she'd been lighter. Happier. More present. That should have comforted me. Instead, it confused me. She started touching my arm again. Initiating conversations. Saying things like, I feel like we're finally back. Back from where? I didn't ask. I wanted to believe her. The message appeared by accident. She'd left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. It vibrated once. Then again. The screen lit up. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was making coffee. But the preview text was right there. I miss how it feels when it's just us. No name. Just initials. Sent at 9:12 p.m. At 9:16 she walked into the kitchen, wrapped in a towel, smiling. I feel closer than ever, she said, leaning into me. I checked the time. 9:16. That's when the betrayal stopped being theoretical. I handed her the mug. Watched her take a sip. Watched her eyes soften the way they always did when she thought we were aligned. How long have you felt that way? I asked. She smiled. Lately. Like something clicked. Something had. Just not between us. I didn't confront her that night. Not because I was weak, because I needed to understand the architecture of the lie before I stepped inside it. Over the next week I paid attention. Not obsessively. Carefully. I noticed how she angled her phone away when she typed. How she smiled at nothing. How she showered longer but kissed me quicker. How intimacy returned suddenly, generously, like a performance designed to distract. She started saying we again. I started hearing him. The message history didn't require hacking. She'd synced her devices months ago. Forgot to undo it. The timestamps were brutal in their precision. Messages sent while sitting across from me. Replies typed during movies we were watching together. Voice notes recorded minutes after she told me she was exhausted. It wasn't physical. Not yet. That almost made it worse. Because emotional cheating doesn't stumble. It schedules itself. I finally spoke on a Tuesday night. She was curled up on the couch, head on my shoulder, scrolling. Comfortable. Secure. Who's Jay? I asked. Her body stiffened before her face did. A friend, she said too quickly. I nodded. The one you miss. Silence. She sat up slowly, phone in her lap like a loaded object. You read my messages? She asked. No, I said. I read time. She exhaled sharply. It's not what you think. I turned to her. Calm. Measured. Then help me think correctly. She hesitated. That was the answer. It's just someone I talk to, she said. It doesn't mean anything. Then why does he get the parts of you I haven't seen in years? I asked. Her eyes filled not with guilt, with annoyance. You're making this bigger than it is, she said. Nothing happened. I nodded again. You're right, I said. Nothing happened. I paused. Between us. That night I didn't sleep. Not because I was imagining things, because I finally wasn't. I realized how long I'd been negotiating for crumbs. How often I'd mistaken peace for connection. How easily I'd accepted emotional distance as maturity. I wasn't losing her. I'd already been living without her. The difference now was clarity. And clarity doesn't scream. It waits. I didn't ask her to stop talking to him. That's what surprised her most. People expect ultimatums. Drama. Please. I gave her space. And in that space she exposed everything. She started staying up later, phone always face down, charger pulled close like a secret she needed to keep alive. When I asked how her day was, she answered efficiently. When he messaged, she smiled unconsciously, the kind of smile that doesn't belong to safety but to escape. One night, she fell asleep before turning her phone on silent. It buzzed at 1:38 a.m. I didn't reach for it right away. I waited. Let the vibration repeat. Let my body register what my mind already knew. When I picked it up, the screen lit my face like a confession. I wish I was next to you instead. Time-stamped while her head rested on my chest. That was the moment humiliation entered the room. Not loud. Not explosive. Precise. The next morning I made breakfast like usual. Eggs. Toast. Coffee. Muscle memory is a powerful thing. She kissed my cheek before leaving for work. I love you, she said. I watched the door close behind her, and I finally understood something important. She wasn't confused. She was managing narratives. That evening I didn't ask questions. I laid evidence on the table. Printed screenshots. Dates circled. Times highlighted. No commentary. No accusation. Just truth organized. She stared at the pages like they might rearrange themselves if she waited long enough. This is an invasion of privacy, she said finally. No, I replied calmly. This is the consequence of sharing a life. She crossed her arms. Defensive posture. Familiar. You're acting like I cheated. You're acting like I don't exist, I said. She scoffed. You're being dramatic. That word again. I leaned back in my chair. Did you tell him you miss him? Yes, she said quickly. But that doesn't mean. Did you tell him you felt more understood by him than by me? She hesitated. Did you tell him you feel closer to him than to your husband? Her jaw tightened. That's not fair, she said. It's factual, I replied. She stood up. Pacing now. You've been emotionally unavailable for years, she snapped. He listens. He sees me. I nodded slowly. And instead of telling me that, I said, you gave him access to your intimacy. She stopped pacing. I didn't plan for this, she said. It just happened. No, I corrected gently. You chose it. Her voice hardened. I never loved you the way you needed. You should have known that. There it was. Not shouted. Not weaponized. Just dropped. I felt something inside me give way, not pain. Identity. Because suddenly I saw myself the way she must have seen me. Stable. Predictable. Replaceable. I was convenient, I said aloud, more to myself than to her. She didn't disagree. I stayed because it was easier, she said. You made life work. I stood up then. Not abruptly. Intentionally. So did a chair, I said. That doesn't make it a partner. Her eyes widened. That's unfair. No, I replied. It's accurate. That night I slept on the floor of the office. Not because she asked. Because I couldn't share space with someone who rewrote my values so casually. I stared at the ceiling for hours, feeling something collapse. The version of myself that believed loyalty was enough. The version that thought patience would be rewarded. The version that kept shrinking so the marriage could breathe. At 4:12 a.m. clarity arrived. Quietly. I wasn't fighting for love. I was fighting to be chosen. And that's a fight you lose the moment you enter it. The next day I stopped explaining. Stopped asking. Stopped negotiating emotional access. She noticed immediately. You're being distant, she said. No, I replied. I'm being honest. I opened a new account. Scheduled a consultation. Moved my personal files out of shared storage. Each step felt mechanical, but underneath something stronger was forming. Self-respect. She tried to soften. You're overreacting, she said one night. We can fix this. I looked at her then, really looked. You're asking me to compete with someone who already has the parts of you I married, I said. That's not fixing. That's erasing. She didn't argue. Because she knew. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. And waking up is the most dangerous thing you can do in a relationship built on avoidance. I didn't ask her to choose. That decision was mine. When someone gives their emotional life to someone else, asking them to come back doesn't restore intimacy. It negotiates for leftovers. I wasn't interested in being reassigned a role in my own marriage. We told people slowly, not dramatically, not with explanations, just facts. We're separating. Some asked why. Most didn't need to. Elena tried once more to reframe the story. It wasn't cheating, she said one evening while we packed books into separate boxes. Nothing physical ever happened. I didn't look up. You don't get credit for stopping at the edge after leaning over it. She exhaled sharply. You're making me the villain. No, I said. I'm letting you be accurate. The legal process was unremarkable. Paperwork. Mediation. Mutual friends choosing neutrality because it was easier than understanding. What surprised me wasn't the loneliness. It was the relief. I moved into a modest apartment across the river. Bare walls. Clean lines. Quiet nights. The first week I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, not to text her, but to brace myself for disappointment. Then I realized something unsettling. There was nothing to brace for anymore. No emotional audits. No competing narratives. No pretending closeness existed because it once had. I didn't stalk her social media. I didn't monitor timestamps. I didn't need to, because trust once fractured doesn't ask to be repaired. It asks to be released. Months later, we met one final time to sign the last document. She looked lighter. So did I. I never meant to hurt you, she said quietly, like a confession she needed to hear herself say. I nodded. Intent doesn't undo impact. She waited. I didn't offer absolution, because forgiveness isn't owed. It's earned internally. Afterward, I sat alone in my car for a long time. Not grieving. Reflecting. I thought about how many people mistake emotional neglect for stability. How many accept proximity instead of presence. How many shrink themselves to maintain a version of peace that costs them everything. I had done that. And I was done. Healing wasn't linear. Some nights were quiet in the wrong way. Some mornings felt hollow. But the absence wasn't empty, it was clean. I rebuilt slowly. Not my image. My boundaries. I learned to listen to discomfort instead of smoothing it over. To trust patterns over promises. To recognize that love without accountability is just convenience wearing warmth. And most importantly, I learned this. If someone tells you they feel closer than ever, but their actions place intimacy elsewhere, believe behavior, not reassurance. Timestamps don't lie. People do. If you're listening to this and you're wondering whether you're asking for too much, you're not. Connection isn't a luxury. Presence isn't dramatic. Respect isn't negotiable. I didn't leave because my wife loved someone else. I left because I finally loved myself enough to stop competing for space I already deserved. And that was the moment my life truly began again.